following program on Ada Derana 24 is classified for general audience. It is intended for all ages. It contains little or no violence, no strong language, and little or no sexual dialogue or situations.
Very good evening, and you are joining us on another episode on Business Best, and this is a platform where we showcase the best in the business, and we will be introducing to you people who have excelled in a particular field in order to showcase their latest developments in their respective industry. Now, when we talk about the education system here in Sri Lanka, we have heard a lot of complaints from people saying that, our systems are going in the traditional way. We are moving towards more theory and not practical, and we have a business today, a lady entrepreneur who has taken the initiative to go beyond these traditional ways of teaching. So with that small introduction, I would like you to be introduced to Nevindaree Premarathne, who is the founder and CEO of the Makers Global. Thank you, Nevindaree, for taking the time to join me on the show today.
And thank you very much for inviting me today, Shanali.
All right, Nevindaree, I am interested to know more about the Makers Global and the Makers Box that we've been discussing prior to the program as well. And I believe this is going to be a very useful tool for the youngsters out there who want to get that practical knowledge, and how you all want to encourage the STEM education as well. So with that, tell our viewers a little bit about what the Makers Global is.
Okay, so before that I'll give you a small intro about why we are doing this. First of all, we already know that there's a huge gap in the skill market as well. Even if you talk about stats, according to World Economic Forum, they also said by 2025 there will be a huge skill gap when it comes to STEM field. It's somewhere around like 85 million jobs get unfilled in this space. So with that, most of the parents in this tech field, they already know that there's a problem, and they are preparing their children for this future workforce as well. But the thing is, still we are using the same traditional way to get this technology also get taught to these children, right? So the problem is how we can change this. And at the same time, if we consider all these children that are out there, if we talk to them, they clearly, majority of them, nearly 50% of them normally say that these STEM subjects are boring and not interesting. It's because of the way we deliver it. So parents know this, most of the guardians know this, but at the same time it's kind of difficult for them to change this, because they also having this challenging environment, because we don't have this necessary infrastructure outside, and also we don't have any skilled trainers and instructors. We have a lot, but at the same time that is not enough to train all these children, because
the method
exactly
is the same we have been carrying on for the past years.
And we have to understand that every child is different. The way they absorb content is different. So this is where we thought of we should provide a solution. And this is the problem that we are trying to solve with the Makers Global. So we are trying to make this STEM education fun and engaging for kids of all ages. And at the same time, since we know that every child is different, they should be able to access this knowledge anytime, anywhere, at their own pace.
All right.
And without leaving them behind, we really want them to understand all these concepts behind it, the basic knowledge behind it, and whenever they need further assistance, we are there to support them through our instructors also.
That's definitely true. It's not just the book knowledge we need at this moment, we need the practical knowledge also.
Exactly. So
I want you to tell me, as the entrepreneur of this firm, how did you take this step to change this method of teaching STEM?
So even stats indicates that we can change this, like right now at this moment, just like I mentioned before, nearly 50% of kids, they clearly say they believe that these are boring and not interesting subject areas. But at the same time, these studies indicate that with hands-on experience and engaging activities, we can change this mindset. So this is what we are trying to bring in to all these activities, but at the same time you can see there are so many STEM players in the market. So they provide these sort of STEM activity boxes, they provide online platforms, but at the same time we really want them to be there throughout this process with the children, because otherwise what happens is some people they absorb this content, but some people won't. They need further assistance and they need to improve the skill set that they already know. So being there with them throughout the journey matters. So this is where we position our business.
All right. So we were discussing prior to the program also about the Makers Kit, and this is how you all provide the education tools for the children to get their hands on the practical knowledge. So tell me how the Makers Global is sending these kits to their children, how the instructor is teaching them in order to use this kit per se. So how do they get involved?
Okay. So the Makers Box is I would say it's an innovative program that we have designed. It's an innovative course that we have designed to develop curiosity, critical thinking and problem skills of the children. And with that we really want to form the habit of building ingenious inventions. So we want to make this as a habit. So with that, have this in our mind, what we did was we provide this Makers Box with all the materials and tools that is required to conduct all these activities for an entire month. So once they subscribe this Makers Box, they will get this box to their doorstep. Together with that, they're going to get access to our online platform as well. So where it has all the content in text and audio format as well. Because sometimes kids, they don't like to go through all the text format, text content. So with that understanding, what we did was we converted this text to audio format as well, so that they can listen to us as a story. And we provide all the instructions for the activities that we have developed. So those are also there in video format with diagrams, but we know sometimes they are going through some of the difficulties to absorb this. So because of that reason, whenever they want, they can always contact our instructors through the chat platform that we have, or apart from that, they can also have one-on-one discussions with our instructors. So this is also a facility that we provide with the Makers Box.
Do you think children have been very interactive with you all in this term?
Exactly. So we have so much of nice stories to share. Even when it comes to this chat platform, they sometimes share what they have done during the day as well. They really like to share what they have built, and they really like to share what they have done with their friends with this Makers Box. So likewise, they always share all this information. The best part is, Shonali, on our platform, once they create all these activities, they can submit their creation. So our instructors can go through all the submissions, the creations that they have made, and then they can provide feedback to improve it further. So they love to upload all these things. Even they do presentations and share that this is what I did, and these are the problems that we solved, and we can solve these sort of problems using this sort of a technology. So we get these sort of feedback all the time from kids.
Okay, so these instructors that you mentioned who are monitoring the children's performance, are they also teachers, or how did you get this team together?
Yes, some of them are teachers, and at the same time these instructors are mainly from the education sector. So they have experience over 5 years in this training space, because the way that we should talk to a child, it should be a bit different, because rather than just saying that this is wrong and this is right, we have to encourage them in a way that they should feel like, okay, so they also accept what I have to say. So it's quite important. And also the other important part is, when it comes to our trainers, we onboard some young trainers as well, because they know the mindset of a child. It's quite important, because sometimes we don't know what are the new technologies that they are dealing with, and also what are the new terms and jargons that they are familiar with. So these young trainers, they make these conversations in a very interesting way with the child, so they understand the same language, they get it, they gel so well.
Okay, so usually what time do you encourage children to get involved with this? Because this is not included in the school curriculum activity. Have you ever tried to introduce this method to schools?
Here in schools, still we haven't approached any schools with the Makers Box. But before starting this Makers Global organization, I wanted to implement this in schools. We tried in a certain ways to get this implemented in schools, but we wouldn't be able to do so. There were certain reasons behind it. Even though we had amazing projects with us, due to negligence of some people and also due to lethargic processes and red tapes, we couldn't get that done. So that is another problem that we faced when it comes to the mainstream. But in certain cases, we can't blame certain set of people for that, because the system is also not supportive enough. Rather than going through the mainstream, we thought of, why don't we come up with an alternative and provide a solution for this? That's what entrepreneurs should do, right?
All right. So that's very interesting, because you have gone beyond your boundaries in order to introduce these new methods of teaching to children. So I want to know the advantages of you doing so and about these new methods of STEM education as well. But before that, we have to go into a short commercial break. We'll be back soon. You're watching Business Best. Welcome back to Business Best, and we were in discussion with Nevindaree Premarathne, the founder and CEO of the Makers Global. So Nevindaree, before we left off to the break, you were explaining how the challenges that you had to face in order to introduce this to schools, and how you went out of your way in order to start your own business so that you will somehow be able to reach out to children and introduce this new method of teaching. So I want to ask you, why do you think schools here in Sri Lanka were reluctant to make this change in their system, and why do you think you had very lethargic responses?
When it comes to schools, it's not an isolated entity that you're talking about, because there's a system around it. So they are working together with the Ministry of Education, and Ministry of Education is working together with the National Institute of Education. So this is where we build all these curriculums, and with that the execution part happens in Ministry of Education, and that what gets from schools. So this is how it works. But if we take these past few years when it comes to entrepreneurship subject, for an example, let's say, so it was supposed to come to the education system by 2023, but still it's not there. So it's been over 5 years now. According to the things that we know, it will gonna get implemented in schools in the year of 2025. So after 8 years. So normally what happens is, when it comes to these, renewing all the syllabuses and everything, it happens in every 5 years. But technology evolves rapidly, more than that. So there's a conflict, there's a mismatch, there's a gap. This problem is also there in one place, and at the same time, the question that you ask, why these schools are reluctant to implement this, because there's a curriculum, there's a syllabus that they have to go through. If they feel like this is another additional burden for them to try out in schools, it's kind of difficult for them to implement this solution in the school. For an example, we know that we are in a race right now. It's a competitive environment that we have.
That's right.
Scholarship exam, ordinary level, advanced level. So they're preparing these kids for these exams. I'm not so sure it's for the future. So with that, if we are trying to implement this, so they have to put an extra effort to get that done. And at the same time, certain schools, they don't have necessary infrastructure to handle this as well. So there are certain problems like that, but we are so positive. We feel that we'll be able to change this system really, really soon.
That's right. Okay, I'm happy to hear about your determination to do that, to go out of your boundaries in order to do this. What are the advantages that you saw for you to do this, and what gain do you think children will be able to gain out of your Makers Kit?
Mainly the skills that I mentioned earlier. Even they develop their curiosity, critical thinking, problem solving skills, because these are the skills that they need to develop when they get into the future workforce. So when we teach these STEM subjects, it's not about science, technology, engineering and mathematics that we try to teach them. With that only they understand, okay, so this is how we can solve a problem using these technologies, and this is how you should do experiments. So they learn the basics of it and they develop this curiosity. So this is why we position this Makers Box with all this STEM education, because we really want to improve the skill set that I told you earlier.
All right. So how do you encourage children, young people to get your kit and be involved with the Makers Global?
So right now we are using social media mainly to promote this, because most of the audience is there already. I think even with the records and the data that we have right now, we are getting so much requests through LinkedIn than Facebook. I think it's the professional network there. They know how this world is evolving and changing. So they really want to make their children prepared for this future. And they know it's not the job that they need to target right now. It's the skill set that they need to develop. So like back in 25 years, 20 years, all we want to become is a doctor, engineer or a teacher.
True.
But right now, sometimes the professions that we had 20 years back, those are no longer here. And with the technologies like AI, blockchain, so with all that, some of the job roles get redundant. With all that, what are the things that we need to improve in a child? Basically, these are the skills, the problem solving skills, because then when they know basics, they know how to get adapted to certain situations and environments.
That's true. So do you have like a specific target audience, like a specific age group for children?
Right now at this moment, Shanali, we are mainly focusing 4 to 15 years of age kids. But we are planning to increase this age group as well. Even right now, there are certain customers that we have who are way beyond 20s also, because they really like to do experiments. They really like to learn new things. So we have a vast range of, when it comes to age, range of groups in there, but mainly we are focusing on 4 to 15 years of age right now.
Something very interesting when I did my research also, which I found, was you mentioned about a DIYK, which is do-it-yourself kit. Could you explain a little bit more on that as well?
Yes. So DIY kit itself explains it a lot. Like you can do certain activities by yourself. You can do your own experiments and some activities to understand how it works. You do the assembling part, that's how it works. Now, this is something that you can see in the market all the time. Since you asked this question, I'll tell one of the things that we have come up with. So, we have another kit called DIYK, that is do it with your kid. The reason why we came up with this concept is we know that our kids are so familiar with technology these days. So, even a parent, they are struggling a lot to get used to that particular technology, but kids within a second, sometimes they figure things out. So there's a small generation gap as well. It's kind of difficult for a parent or the guardian to understand their language and also deal with when it comes to certain problems that they are facing. So we really like to improve the bond that they are having, and not just the parents, and we are talking about the grandparents as well. Rather than bringing a toy to a kid, why don't you give something meaningful and engaging so that they can work together and have fun?
That is very important, because these days kids, they rarely have, parents per se, they don't have time to spend time with their children. Yes. But when doing something fun and when you're learning something from it, I believe that's very important, and good to hear that you all are involving that part of engagement also, like with the parents' involvement as well. And you were mentioning to me, like prior to the program, that you prefer doing B2B transactions rather than B2C transactions. So tell me, how do you do these transactions? B2B as in business to business. How do you target businesses at this point with this kit?
So when it comes to B2B businesses, the reason why we are mainly focusing on that, then we can create an impact immediately for a larger audience. rather than focusing on B2C market. But it doesn't mean that we are just neglecting our B2C market, because we need them and we really want them to experience this. B2B market, there are different set of partners that we have. We have partners like SLT Mobitel, K-Books. So they are working as our retail partners, and we are working together with them on consignment basis. Apart from that, another interesting use case that I would like to share with you, a partnership that we have with Azentec. In that organization, actually they do really care about their employees, and when they care about employees, it's not just the employee, it's the family of the employee as well. So these organizations sponsor these Makers Box for their employees' kids. So this is also another model that we thought of because education system here in Sri Lanka, so this has become one of the major reason why some parents leave the country. So we really want to change that perception. So there are certain things that we can do here also in Sri Lanka. So if we can think in the same way, there are so many things that we can change.
Okay, we are reaching the end of our program also. Before that, I want to ask you about the Make Her kit, which I'll have in the Makers Global as well, encouraging women engagement in the STEM education also. So explain a bit about that as well.
When it comes to Make Her, it's a workshop model that we have. So there what we do is based on the request that we receive from schools, especially when it comes to girls' schools and even universities. They really want to give this knowledge to female students in their university. So far we have conducted multiple workshops in University of Kelaniya, University of Peradeniya, Lindsay Girls' School, Sirimau Bandaranayake Vidyalaya, likewise. So we got this request from some of the clients that we had in our Makers Box. And even principal of those schools, they directly contacted us and asked, is there a way that you can do something like this for students who have completed their O-levels? Before making the next decision, can you give them a bit of an understanding about what would be the future workforce would be? So likewise, based on that, we provide these workshops, we conduct these workshops in schools, mainly because of the fact that we know that there's a small barrier. There's a glass ceiling that most of the women have, think that STEM is not for them. And they are really scared to use certain equipments. Even when you at home, sometimes to change a bulb, you ask for a guy to change that. So because of that reason, we really want to change that mindset, the perception. So this is the main reason why we conduct these Make Her workshop. And to add a small piece of it, so even according to the study Microsoft has done recently, so they said most of the boys do STEM subjects because they enjoy the way they make and break and everything. The girls, the reason why they like STEM subjects, because they really like to change the world. So this is something that it's together, we can do so much more. We really need both of them to change the world. It's not just boys, we need girls also.
Okay, well, that's a very good vision that you have as well, and encouraging women also in this field. And I wish you all the very best in your business as well. Well, this is all the time we have on the program, and thank you so much for sharing your inspiration, your ideas, and your purpose also of the Makers Global.
Thank you very much, Shenali.
And that was our episode on Business Best. We'll be back again next week with another product or service that would interest you. And just in case you can watch us on air, you can always rewatch by catching us on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Derana English. I'm Suzanne Shenali. Stay safe and have a good night.